May 2020. Taking advantage of the lovely weather, the Prime Minister joined a few dozen Downing Street staff for a social gathering with booze in the No. 10 garden. And as instructed from this building, the rest of the country was in lockdown. Today there was anger from his own party and demands for the Prime Minister to admit he was at the summer drinks.
I would not in any way support the Prime Minister if he broke the law and attended that party.
Do you think he can survive this?
If he wasn't there, if he comes forward and he is upfront and honest with the public. But if he broke the law, if he didn't follow his own guidance and if he misled Parliament, then no.
This idea that, the people that were telling us about all these restrictions on our lives, we're off having, gin and tonic in the back garden. It is beyond belief. It is indefensible. You cannot defend it.
If he knew it was a party and chose to attend, I'm not sure how he can hold a position in that situation and keep telling the country even now what COVID restrictions, what we all have to do.
In the Commons, a government minister faced a barrage of questions and little support behind him to cheer him on.
If the Prime Minister broke the law, he will resign, won't he?
It's an entirely hypothetical position. He seeks to draw me. The Prime Minister's going nowhere.
The Metropolitan Police revealed it had now made contact with the government over the latest claims of a party on May 20th. And they will now have seen the email invitation to that event. The whole list of alleged Whitehall social gatherings in lockdown includes 4 alleged departmental events and a total of 7 in Downing Street.
Perhaps it would be faster if Sue Gray were to investigate the days that there weren't parties on. So what is there to wait for? The Prime Minister should come here now, fess up and tell us what happened.
All we are asking to do is to wait a swift period of time for the investigation to conclude.
Sue Gray, the official leading the investigation, is used to reporting to Prime Ministers on what their ministers have been up to. But in this case, a report is looking at what the Prime Minister himself knew about what was going on in his own backyard.
Presumably Sue Gray is going to either blow up her own career or the Prime Minister's, or find a sort of grey middle area that doesn't satisfy anyone.
I think there's a chance of that, but I do think it's possible for her to write a report which is factual, which is mostly what she's going to do, but has the kind of language that leaves us without too much doubt about what really went on. And it means that she's not the one that's actually called time on the Prime Minister or put his head on the block, but has given other people, Parliament, who are really the people that now need to make a judgment on this, has given them the tools to come to their own decision.
The day after the No. 10 garden gathering, Boris Johnson clapped the NHS on his front doorstep. Many of his MPs are making mutinous noises tonight, aware of the suffering lockdown brought, which surfaced again in the Commons today.
In Northern Ireland, we reached a milestone of 3,000 deaths due to COVID just last week. 3,000 people who followed the rules and grieved today. So will the paymaster, including my mother-in-law who died alone, will...
Tomorrow, a more packed Commons will hear the Prime Minister defend himself, only weeks after he sympathised with those revolted by stories of a December 2020 drinks inside No. 10.
I can understand how infuriating it must be to think that the people who have been setting the rules have not been following the rules. If those rules were broken, then there will be disciplinary action for all those involved.
MPs on the opposition benches will try to haunt the Prime Minister with those and other commitments Boris Johnson made in the Commons. His whips will try to choreograph noisy support, but it was thin on the ground today.
And Gary's here with me in No. 10 now. Gary, how is it looking for the Prime Minister tonight?
Not terrific. You talk to Tory MPs, and an awful lot of them will tell you this issue about the parties has cut through. Some of them qualify that a bit and say, well, because there wasn't a lockdown this Christmas and it's receded a bit in the memory for some, that it doesn't have quite the acuteness that it might as an issue, but an awful lot of them are giving very pessimistic prognoses for the Prime Minister's political future. I talked to quite a lot of them, people who are middle ground, people who are ardent supporters of the Prime Minister, some of his critics, and the range of probabilities you hear from people about what are the chances of the Prime Minister getting through as leader, as Prime Minister to the end of the year, and the range was predominantly 40 to just over 50%. That is extremely tight. We didn't hear many senior ministers coming out to defend him today, and he'll have noticed that. And also, he hasn't worked out a new line to take. He's still saying, wait for the investigation. He'll have to come up with a better line for Prime Minister's questions tomorrow.
Well, let's pick up on that investigation. How worried does he need to be about Sue Gray rooting around?
Sue Gray does have a reputation for having brought down ministers. The way she's done reports in the past, commissioned by a Prime Minister, is to pull together a chronology of the facts, and as she's been able to divine them, and then put that in front of the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister then comes to a verdict on whether the Minister should go or not, and she writes her conclusion. Well, on this occasion, it's not really an investigation as such into one of the ministers. The Prime Minister is, as it were, one of the people under investigation. So she may have to write her conclusion and then put it on his desk. One other thing, she could have the police wading into all of this. She's probably at least 10 days off sort of finishing this, you sense, talking to people. If the police came in and said, well, actually, there seems to be a lot of evidence about this 20th of May 2020 party, we want to investigate that, she might have to pause the entire thing. That would be a nightmare for a government that is trying to draw a line under this.
Gary, thanks very much.